All right, you have your favorite part? The listeners are on the edge of their seat listening to this part.
That one?
Okay, now you got to tell us, why is that your favorite part?
Because I like that she interviewed all the persons, and I think she's about to eat dinner just like I ate dinner with my friend Maple.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you for sharing that. I'm so glad you like it.
Can you say nice to meet you?
Nice to meet you.
Have fun at school this week.
Okay.
All right. Good night, babe.
I want Mommy.
Yeah, go grab Mom. Just shut the door on your way out. All right. Well, thank you very much, and welcome to Veteran Made. I'm sure that's can't imagine very many podcasts have started that way for you, but
Not one.
here we are.
There we go.
Yeah.
First for everything.
Is that much of it? That's not much of a change for you, right? My name is Kerry Kite. I used to load bombs in the Air Force, and now I'm a writer, a filmmaker, and an entrepreneur. Through using the post 9/11 GI Bill to go to college, working hourly jobs to pay the bills, and freelancing my way into a career, I've studied what it takes to successfully transition from service to civilian, and that study has become a conversation. On this podcast, I speak to other veterans, successful artists and entrepreneurs about their transition, what they did well, where they failed, what they learned, and most importantly, how they applied their skills. Episode 160 features Riley Tejcek, an active duty Marine and the author of If You Can Dream It, Be It. Welcome. This is Veteran Made. Our merch store is live at store.veteranmadeproductions.com. Grab hats, t-shirts, and hoodies in both performance and tri-blend cotton fabrics. Use code VM-5OFF for 5% off your purchase. Veteran Made is also sponsored by GoPills, a military-grade nootropic that contributes to brain health over time. Use code VM15 at checkout for 15% off. I get my collagen protein from Bubs Naturals, where you can use code VETERANMADE, all one word, at checkout for 20% off your order. We're also proud to partner with True Made Foods, which makes condiments free from added sugar and sweetened with real foods. Use code VET at checkout for 15% off. We love socks in this house. I get my wife new socks every Christmas. More importantly, we love American-grown and made socks. Use code VETERANMADE15 at rucksocks.com for 15% off. And lastly, I end my day with Rack Out from Bravo Actual to maintain quality sleep, resulting in a well-rested body and mind. Use code VETERANMADE with a space between the words at checkout for 15% off your order. Enjoy the episode.
Hi. Is that a book you have? It looks just like this book. Have you read it yet? Who's that?
Yeah.
That's me. Oh my goodness.
Just read it before bedtime, so when we're wrapped up here, she's going to go to bed. But we've read it a bunch, which is why I reached out to you, and then we just read it again and prepped to say hello to you.
Do you like it?
What was the hardest part you had to draw in the book?
That I had to draw?
Yeah.
So I actually didn't draw it. I had a friend draw it for me because I'm not a very good drawer.
She wrote it. Do you have a question for her about the writing?
I don't
What was your favorite part?
Like the baseball part? You want me to help you?
Oh, that part? Yeah, that's one of my favorites too.
She likes to do dress up as well, and so now that she gets a little bit older, we're learning that there's ways that you can do that not just for fun, but also for other things.
Yeah.
For those that are just listening and not watching the silence, you can see it on YouTube when you see it. She was turning to a page of the book to show her favorite part. All right, do you want to say goodbye and I can do the podcast? Or do you have another question? Show her your favorite part. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, of course.
We while we're waiting for her to find her favorite part to show you before she goes to bed, I reached out to you because we got the book. I can't remember where I saw it, but we saw it and reached out and read it a bunch of times, and then reached out and she loves it. We read it quite a bit going to bedtime. She starts kindergarten this week, so it's a big week.
Yay! That's awesome.
All right, you have your favorite part? The listeners are on the if they're listening to this part. All right, here we go.
Okay, the favorite part.
Oh,
That one?
okay, now you got to tell us, why is that your favorite part?
Because I like that she she interviewed all the persons, and I think she's about to eat dinner just like I ate dinner with my friend Meg.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you for sharing that. I'm so glad you like it.
Can you say nice to meet you?
Nice to meet you.
Have fun at school this week.
Okay.
All right. Good night, babe. Yeah, go grab mom. Just shut the door on your way out. All right. Well, thank you very much, and welcome to Veteran Made. I'm sure that's can't imagine very many podcasts have started that way for you, but
Not one. There we go.
Yeah.
First for everything.
We're unique. Well, it's very nice to meet you. Thank you so much for joining. And I'm sure most people in the audience know who you are, but if you could just ground us with kind of who you are and where and when you are serving, and then we'll jump into some questions about the book.
Absolutely. So obviously, I'm now a new children's book author as of a couple months ago. The book is called If You Can Dream It, Be It. But in addition to that, I'm an active duty United States Marine Corps captain, currently stationed in San Diego, California. I also have competed for Team USA bobsled for about 5 to 6 years, as well as a former Division I softball player. I have been on 2 TV shows so far, game shows, Family Feud, Lingo, and I now have gotten into the public speaking realm. So I try to do and dabble in a little bit of things, and I'm really excited to be on here and talk to the Veteran Made community.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I'm excited to kind of talk about all of that. I know that you mostly kind of talk about your background, all those things that you've done. I'm most interested in kind of discussing how they all came together for the book. I have a lot of authors on that write a lot of different kinds of books, whether it's poetry from the Dead Reckoning Collective community, or Jack Carr thriller authors, people who write nonfiction, historical nonfiction, and things like that. Haven't had a children's author on yet, which I'm really excited about that. But one thing that I think, especially as service members and as veterans, we often try to figure out okay, I have all these things to say, I have all these experiences. How do I kind of put them into one place, right? Whether I'm writing poetry or fiction or nonfiction. So for you, what was it that made you choose a children's book as the genre, and how true to life is it, and how did you kind of pull from different places and different times in your life to tell this cohesive story?
Well, first of all, I think a theme that you just mentioned is there's so many veterans who have taken up writing after or during their service. And I think that's a really great outlet to continue to share their stories, or even if no one purchases it, to put it on paper and get it kind of out of your mind. I think it's a really healthy way for veterans to adapt as they transition out of the military or anything like that. For me, I wanted to write to children, but I didn't always know that. A big part of my story is still serving, and now in recruiting and all the things, was sharing my story. And growing up in Indiana with no military bases, I never saw a woman in uniform, let alone think that there was women in the Marine Corps of all branches. And so I realized over time, I was sharing my story, that I didn't want there to be a young Riley that never saw a female serving anymore. And thankfully now we're in a little bit of a different age with social media and outlets where I think and I hope more people realize that there's women that serve, especially as more and more stories come out about Afghanistan and Iraq and female involvement there. But I still want to captivate those children that still may not know that there's military women. And the reason why the age group is children of 4 to 8 year olds is because that's where young kids are forming their belief systems. I think there's such an innocence about newborns to 4 year olds that are just taking in everything the world has to offer, but doesn't really know what's going on. When they get to that school age level, that's when their core values and thoughts are starting to be formed. And for men and women, they're starting to create those limiting beliefs already of what is feasible for me, what is not, what is attainable, what could I do, what could I not. So I wanted to write this book to touch the lives of those young children, forming those core memories and beliefs, especially for women, but it's for men too. There's plenty of young boys that have read this book, but for them to see all the possibilities of what they can do, and for all children to realize there's no limitation truly on what they can do in this world, even if they don't seem like they go together, or even if no one's done it before.
Yeah, I love that. Obviously, we've seen an uptick in recruitment numbers this past year, which is great. But for the previous period of time, recruitment was down, right, across like all branches of service. And for those of us that served and had a great experience, like I've been out for, gosh, I mean, I served for 4 years. I was an enlisted guy in the Air Force from 2006, 2010. So I'm coming up on, it's 15 years ago that I got out, and almost 19 years ago that I got in, right? And I had a great experience, not without its challenges, right? But like overall, I look back really fondly on my experience, and even the difficulty of transitioning out. I look back fondly on that as well. And so we talk a lot about like how do we speak to the next generation to make sure that the military is somewhere they want to be. And I think we tend to have the bias towards like high school kids or maybe middle school kids, but to be thinking about elementary age kids, I think is a really cool and unique angle and not something I've seen a lot of, kind of in our space, in our community. And you're talking about that really, I mean, we literally tonight, we just got back from, meet the teacher night. My wife and I did because our daughter started kindergarten. And I was telling her when we were driving home from the school, I was like, man, I was getting kind of emotional. I was like misting up a little bit. And she's like, me too, but why for you? And I was like, I mean, kindergarten is the beginning of like life, right? Like she's been in pre-K and, she loves it and she's social, so she's not going to have a problem. But I'm like, we're not going to be in the classroom. Like we're not going to see her all day, right? There's going to be like times that she's just going to be out there forming kind of who she is with these other kids and with these teachers. And yes, obviously with us as parents, and our district does a great job of making sure that parents are involved. But you're totally right that these kids, when they start that school age, like they're going to start deciding who they want to be, for my daughter this week.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where I want to touch them, right? And so from a recruitment aspect, when we're looking at recruiting, we want to see a return on our value. So oftentimes going to the elementary school is not something that is probably going to pay dividends for that recruiter serving in that billet, right? Because it's going to take however long. But for me and someone that isn't focused just on that, I'm more focused for impact. I want to have a positive impact and experience on people's lives. And to your point, our children are so innocent and pure, but we want to make sure that they're being taught the right things early on because that's going to carry forward with them in their life. And I've also had the blessing to have talked to so many families that are like, hey, because you took the time to speak to my child or whatever, they now have this really awesome light of what a service member looks like, that military members are like heroes to them. And now, they now understand and are get more excited. And I think that's what we want. We want to have a generation in society that realizes that only 1% of the population really does go forward and serve to any capacity, whether you serve 4 years or 30. It is still a sacrifice that has to be made by people that are brave and proud and want to represent our country. And if we can create that mindset early on, I think it'll pay dividends for the generation and future to come. And hopefully by then we'll help their recruiting efforts. And they can thank us one day. But overall, I think it does a bigger impact for the world as a whole, which is what I think I want to see more of.
Totally. And we want our kids to have options, right? And, you touched on it, like growing up in Indiana and not having a lot of touch points with the military. Even if kids, read this book and are exposed to more options and more things, whether it's the military or sports or, anything else, kids will grow up with having options available to them and they can make their choices. But then they've also been exposed and, talking specifically about the military, like having exposure through books like this to say, that's an option for me. And hey, I didn't choose that option, but hey, my dad served and I grew up reading these stories and I appreciate it in a way that maybe other kids might not. And that's, that sort of gap that we have, that military civilian divide, still exists in this country, which just is really bizarre to me, right? Just because I have so much exposure to the military, that there's so many people that don't have any of those touch points. So options are good, but then also the appreciation early on for all of the options, and then how they're afforded, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So did this happen like exactly the way that happened in the book in third grade for you?
No, so I will like the story is almost 100% accurate and true. The way the third grade came about was my favorite school year was when I was in third grade, because you're in that middle stage where you're like, you're not the oldest, but you're not the youngest. Like you have some status in elementary. And that's when I started actually telling my dad that I wanted to be a professional track athlete. At the time in third grade from track and field day, because I was one of the fastest ones and that was my favorite thing to do. Now, I obviously ended up playing softball and that quickly faded. But I remember that's when I was, again, starting to articulate what I wanted to do. And I did have a curious mind where I loved history, and I still am. Like the whole, where's my family from, and my great grandparents. And, my last name is Tejcek, but it's spelled like you can't even pronounce it. So, just this natural curiosity of like, what is history and what's this like? And my dad getting baseball cards sent to the house for him to sign and send back to kids. So a lot of the story is accurate in the sense of my mind was curious and I was like, well, Dad, what did you do? Obviously my mom gets left out a little bit towards the end. She's the one who kind of helps me realize it, because that's what all moms do. There are guidance of this world, I swear.
Yeah.
But yeah, my little sister, who's now in law school, was an Indy 500 pageant princess, and so she did all of that, and she's stunning and beautiful. And just like your daughter's mentioning, we love playing dress up and being princesses. But my favorite princess was Mulan, which I get argued about. My fiance, who's from England, says she's not a real princess, and I beg to differ. But because surely, how can I be someone who likes to dress up and be in a pageant myself? And I was Miss Military, but also, be able to put cami paint on and go in the field and live in the woods for a week and love it and shoot weapons and stuff, right? So it kind of all worked out in an historically accurate way. But I added a little bit in there. Every single character is somebody. Miss Love is actually my best friend, Keisha Love, who's an Olympic bobsledder, who has done nothing but like as a teacher role, also been my best friend, but a mentor and guided me throughout. So it's just really cool to see the book come to life. But most people ask, like, is this real? I'm like, yes, my dad, professional baseball player. My grandfather was a Marine for a very short time, but he was a Marine. My sister was in the pageants and everything. So it's cool to see it all come together and allow children to be like, wait a minute. So this is real. This isn't just a make-believe Disney story. Like this could happen. And that's the whole point is, yes, this is completely accurate. I am living proof that it's feasible and possible, and you can do this as well. And then the fun thing was the illustrator and I actually never met before. And so with my publishing company, we sent this off to them, and she pulled photos on like the page that has all of the family, real family photos, like my dad's baseball card, everything. And it was such a treat to open it and see that and see her vision come to life. So yeah, it was awesome. So to answer your question, I would say 99% of it is completely accurate.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, the kind of angle for the question is, I think, geared towards the veterans or service members that are still serving, that want to be creative and write. Like, I've been talking about this for the last few weeks on the podcast, different mediums of writing, whether it's for the screen or novels or children's books or whatever. A lot of times we have a story that we want to tell that is about ourselves or about our experiences or about somebody close to us, and we get caught up in, I have to tell it exactly the way that it happened. It has to be totally 100% historically accurate from the the time period to the setting to all of the different elements of the plot. When in reality, you can take all of these things, put them onto paper, and organize them the way that they need to be organized to tell a good story and then also to have that truth element to it. So what was your process like to take all these elements and say, all right, here's going to be the structure of my story and how I want this to unfold?
So you just hit something that I think is really important for people to realize is in being an officer or being in the military, we get caught up sometimes in the planning process. Like we spend way too long in the planning process versus the action process. So it's like 20% planning, 80% action and doing. And I think this goes to answer your question. I knew exactly to your point. If I got caught up in all the little details right away, like even the title or little things, it'll trip you up from continuing to move forward. So the process for me said, or started like I said on national television that I was going to write a book before I was 30, which then allowed me to hold myself to a very high level of accountability of like, oh my goodness, I have to get this done. And then I got injured and I broke my foot and I decided I could be sitting in bed feeling sorry for myself while my teammates were training, or I could use this time that the Lord gave me and do something that I wanted to do. So I just started writing, and I am a perfectionist where I want to know the details. And very similar, like you were saying, I wanted to like have everything like so perfect in each word and the word count, and did I want it to rhyme and what was the title, and I just was like, you just need to start writing. Like you need to write, and then you revisit it and you read it to someone else out loud, and then you change words and you get feedback. So the most important thing I can tell to someone who wants to write a book is just start writing. Just get it down on paper. You can always come back to it, and I promise you your first draft is not going to be the final. I promise. So you're going to edit it regardless. So you might as well just get it all out there, have something, have a product, and then be able to like form and shape it from there. I also tell people, because I didn't know this myself, if you want to work with a publisher and you want to pitch it to them, you have to already have a draft. It doesn't mean that it has to be perfect, but you have to have something to show them. So there are times when people come to me as a new authors and be like, hey, I want to write a book. This is what I want to be about. Great ideas, but they have nothing to show for it. So even if you have that call with that publisher and they're planning a year out and you have nothing written to show them, well, sorry, I don't have time for you. Call me back when you have it done. So best advice, and to your point in the process, is just start writing, get it down, take a couple days away from it, come back, rewrite it, read it out loud, read it to friends or family and say, hey, what do you think about this? And then you can start to form and create and mold and then pitch it to publishers or something like that.
Was that difficult for you to push through, like being a perfectionist and having that sort of bias towards that way?
Yes.
Or like, how did you push through? Like what did you do?
I would obsess over the small things, right? Details matter. Attention to detail. It was like the little things. I'm like, is that word right? Yeah, does this make sense? And then their feedback was, Riley, you're writing to 4 and 8-year-olds. Like, we need to dumb down some of your words. But I'm like, oh, but nothing could describe this one word the way I wanted it. And they're like, the message will still get across. Or there's times where even now I read it and I'm like, oh, I could have said this instead of saying it this way. And my main takeaway when I want to do that and like nitpick myself is remind myself that it's about the story, it's about the impact, and it's not about the little tedious things. So it's the same thing that I would tell anybody. You're inspiring because you're inspiring to someone. You don't have to be perfect. You're not expected to be perfect. And oh, by the way, the way you think of it now versus a year from now is probably going to change anyways. So I had to give myself a lot of grace and just like pray on the fact where it's like, here's a story and I pray that it has impact. And even if one word should have been changed, is that really going to take away from the impact? Absolutely not. And so keeping the big things, and the small things. So it didn't prevent me from creating my ultimate goal of impact and getting that book on the shelves and getting that book out and into children's hands. And lastly, when you're interacting with children, you're able to add more to it as well. Or even in my author's note, or when I write a book or write a note on the book, you can still find a way to like touch it up or add something that you wanted or take something away. So your story actually is still alive and evolving the more you tell it and share it.
You're obviously somebody who is a high achiever and has been a high achiever based on all the accomplishments we have so far. I'm guessing that your intention for this book was to get it published, right? There's nothing wrong with self-publishing.
Yeah.
I read a lot of self-published stuff, and I encourage everyone in our community to write. And if you want to put it out for people to read, like even better, because actually putting something out into the world, has more value for yourself than you would think, even if it's just on the internet for a couple of people to read anonymously. But for you, like, what was your ambition for getting this published? Was it, where did you start? You mentioned not having a draft yet. Were you like reaching out to publishers without a draft? Were you, how were you kind of approaching that 20%, that planning stage?
Yeah. So it actually went with me looking in my circle of influence, my tribe is what I call them. And I was trying to not reinvent the wheel. So I knew I wanted to do this. I kind of had it in the back of my mind. I get injured, my foot's broken. I'm at the Olympic Training Center. My teammates are competing. And I looked in my network of people, of my tribe, of my community, veterans, friends, all the things. And I asked people who wrote books, all books. I wasn't just on children's books. I was like, teach me if you were to do this over again, right? And I had calls with them. So I actually started with kind of how the book went, is I was interviewing people. And I was like, hey, what did you learn? What would you do again? What would you not? On top of research I was already doing. But to the book's point, there's something about having in-person conversations that ChatGPT and the internet just can't tell you. Of like, hey, if you were to do it again, or you're in my shoes, what would this look like? So it actually started with me calling and talking to a bunch of different authors and getting their feedback and opinion. And from then I realized, hey, with how much I have going on, I want to decentralize this out and get it to a publisher because I didn't want to have to do it. So that was a big point of the publishing step for me, was I didn't want to have to solely do the marketing, solely find an illustrator, like all those kinds of things. I kind of wanted to have someone do it for me, which meant that I wouldn't be making as much potential profit or have as much potential control over it. However, I was willing to make that compromise given what I was going on in my life. So from then, the advice that I was given was from everyone was, Riley, start writing. If you're going to talk to anybody, like, you just need to get your thoughts on paper. Like, don't spend too much time in this planning phase. So after I called a couple of friends, I just started writing and I attacked it. And I asked for help and I did some research, like publishers. And trust me, there was plenty that were like, who are you? No, thank you. So also don't get discouraged because there will be plenty of no's. And I was able to find a publisher that worked. And then I was able to sign a contract when I sent them everything. We did a couple revision stages later on, but it got delayed. So I signed everything in November. They had the draft. It was set to go. It was supposed to come out the following August. And then I deployed. So I was deployed from May to November. And they're like, we can't have a book launch when you're in the middle of Iraq. Like, not a good idea. And I was like, that's fair. So it wasn't until, so instead of that August, it wasn't until the end of March, beginning of April, that it actually came out. So I was sitting on this, like the secret, what felt like forever, a year and a half. And so that was the toughest part for me, was just anticipating and waiting. And it was all out of my control. Like, the book was done, it was ready, but I was in Iraq. I couldn't have a lot of communications with them anyways. I didn't get to do as much pre-book sales and events and talk about it. I didn't even have the book physically in hand until a week before it came out.
Wow.
Yeah. So I couldn't even like show sneak peeks or teasers or anything like that. And then we had some problems with like getting the supply out and all these things. So we had to be very, very patient in this process, but it was extremely rewarding, but it does take a long time. And a lot of publishers, unlike self-publishing, won't even accept that book until the following year because they already have it planned out. So that was the hardest part, was it was done, ready to go. And I just wanted to tell people about it and get it in people's hands. And I had to wait a year and a half for that to even happen.
Man, a lot of things you touched on there, that some threads I want to pull on. I want to get to rejection because that's just a part of the process. If you're a creative, it doesn't matter what industry or what medium you're working in, rejection is a part of the process. But going back to the beginning, it sounds like you were doing both, right? Like, you were being smart. All right, if I'm going to do this, there should be some planning. I should do some research. I should have some understanding of this new operating environment that I've never been in before, but I want to be in. Who can I talk to that's going to give me the kind of minimum necessary information that I need, right, to get going and then get moving and get writing. How long did that process last for you to have those conversations? And did you find yourself getting caught up in those conversations and the momentum that you got from people saying, hey, just start writing? Like, take us back there. Yeah.
So I think there's two folds when people ask for help, because I felt this when people have asked me. Some people actually want to learn and have questions and are intentional, and other people want you to do it for them. And so for me, I was just asking all the minute little questions that I was like, okay, this. And some of it was like, hey, you're not there yet. Don't worry so much about that straight away, right? Because for me, I'm like, well, how does it work for signed copies versus not signed copies? Like, how does it work to get into bookstores versus Amazon versus this? Like, do you sign contracts with all the individual ones? Or because it's a children's book, does that mean that there's different rules and regulations of right? Like I was just all of these questions where they're like, hey, slow down, Captain, like let's bring you back a little bit, let's reel you in. And again, they told me what I need to know. Hey, there's two options. You can self-publish or you can go through a publisher. Here are the pros and cons the way I saw it. Here's why I decided to do this. And I asked the question, if you were starting over, was there anything that you would have done differently? Is there anything you would have liked to know? And asking these kinds of things, and not for someone to do it for me, but to not make the same mistakes that they did. I found myself initially to wanting to ask a bunch of different people because I knew that everyone had different experiences, which they did. But I also knew that the people that actually wrote the children's books are the ones that I wanted to listen and talk to the most, because it's a little, like you talked earlier, it's more special in the sense of like it's a specialty that requires something different. Like I'm max writing 100 or 600 to 800 words versus people that are writing memoirs and like the Jack Cars of the world and stuff. Like that's going to take them much longer to write. So when you're only talking 600-800 words, the actual being of sitting down and writing it doesn't take that long if you think about it. But it's crafting it in a way that makes sense, that how can you with only 600-800 words tell a whole story that's going to impact people and be creative while doing it. So for me, I think I did not spend more time than I needed, but I found myself maybe not having access to as many children's authors as I wanted compared to like authors in general. And then once I kind of got that information from the singular children's book author, I was like, all right, I just need to get going. And I was able to actually knock out the writing in maximum a week to have it to where I was like, I think this is pretty decent. Then the revising stage, obviously the publisher's like, okay, change this, or add things that I didn't even think about that kids would want to know. Like in the book, it talks about like they're at lunch. There's a scene where they're at lunch and it's like the male character munched on his apple. I'm like, I wouldn't even have thought to talk about that, but it's like things that kids can relate to. It's like, munching on an apple, like, and kids can hear like the crunch. So it's putting yourself in the children's shoes, which as an adult and as a first-time writer was very difficult. So my first draft that I thought was pretty good was basically just had the backbone of what we wanted to talk about. And then I had to learn how to write like a children's book author, which that took the longest. That took 3 months, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's smart, right? You start wide and then you narrow down as much as you can and should, and then kind of move forward. And like you said, get to work and put words on the page so that you can go through that collaboration process. So what are some other examples, or what was that collaboration process like for you? You don't strike me as somebody who has, a very large ego. So I can't imagine that you were, offended too much by the notes that you got back. But what surprised you about that process? How difficult was that process? How enjoyable was that process of collaborating with the publisher?
Yeah, there was no ego.
Oh, hold on a second.
When I realized that I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I left my ego at the door. I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm just really going to have to rely on what they tell me. I think the hardest part for me as an athlete was like working so hard on something and being like, okay, you're going to like it, right? Like I worked really hard. Hard is relative, but like, okay, I think this one's it. And they're like, no, try again. And you're like, duh. But it was positive. It was like, okay. And then it's my competitive spirit. Like, well, I'm going to get it on this try, and I'm going to rewrite it again. And like, okay, what do you think? And like, and go from there. So for me, it was fun because it challenged me in a way I never thought. When people say that they're an author, there's not very many people who can say that, but there is a skill that's required, and a skill that like I did not have, which is the art of storytelling through writing. Now I can speak verbally and communicate through like public speaking, and that's my jam, but writing it in words was difficult. So for me, the process was actually surprisingly fun. It was humbling, And it was kind of, I made it like a little bit of a game. Like, okay, well, I don't want to take up too much of their time. So I'm going to make sure when I do it, I get it almost like completely right and give them a good product where if they are going to send it back to me, it's going to be like one or two things, like only minor things. And I think that's fun. I think it's good to like challenge yourself and do things that were hard. And for me, that was hard, was getting it back. And they were like, okay, I want you to read this examples. And I'm like, oh, mine do not sound anything like your examples. I'm going to need to like go back and redo this. But because I already had stuff written and I already had the story outlined, the skeletons, I was able to navigate and tweak it. And like I said, I was completely humbled by how much I had to change 600 to 800 words.
Was
And
there anything you fought for that you were like, no, actually, I do think this works, and like this is why?
the main things I wanted to portray in my book was I wanted to sneak in Joshua 1:9, which is my favorite Bible verse, which basically just talks about being bold and courageous. And I was like, no matter what, I'm not changing those words. Courageous is not necessarily a hard word, but it's a little bit harder for maybe 4-year-olds to read and be able to comprehend. And I was like, I'm not changing that. Like, no matter what, when it says like, Riley was bold and courageous, I was like, that those words are going to stay no matter what. But other than that, I didn't put up a fight on too much because I trusted them. And so it's like the military. Like, I trust my chain of command. Like, you guys have done this before. You're telling me what to do. Ultimately, I have the decision and the weight falls on my shoulder as an officer, but I'm going to trust the guidance that you're giving me, and I'm going to deliver you a product that I think makes sense to the both of us. And I feel like that's what happened.
Yeah, what I love about the age group 4 to 8, right, is like, so just selfishly using my daughter as an example and my 1 month old as of yesterday, as she gets older, like we'll read this book to her as well. Is that the perspective that she has, that my 5-year-old has, having now read this book for a couple of months, and then we'll keep reading it until she's in 3rd grade, and then we'll keep reading it until she's out of 3rd grade. Like, the experience will change. She will change, right? Like, there will be things that she'll be like, oh yeah, no, I've read this book, I love it. But then there'll be things that she'll notice because she's older or has a better understanding or a better grasp of what she likes, like what she wants to do. And you have such, obviously you have such a varied background. And so therefore you put, such like varied options kind of in this book for girls in particular to choose from. I'm like really excited as a dad and as an adult reader of this book to like keep going and progressing through that age range that you're describing, that you wrote the book for, just to have that experience and to see what changes,
Yeah, and I'll say this too, what's fun about the book, and I've talked about this. I also wanted parents to read and learn and hear about it. So 4 to 8 means that you're probably potentially in bedtime reading with your parent or reading alongside your parent or need help with some words. And I actually wanted parents to get something out of it without being a book for them, about realizing like, hey, moms and dads, your children are watching everything that you do. And oftentimes they look up to you as their heroes. And what you do for a living, how you treat people, how you talk about it, all this stuff, they're looking. And so just like me, my dad was a superhero. He was a professional baseball player, right? Like that was like the coolest thing for me. And then my mom being able to share like her job and what she did and my sister and everything. So I also want the parents to realize of like, wow, like what kind of example am I setting for my kids? And have I had those conversations with my kids about what I do? What's my purpose? What's my why I work, why I chose this path, to be able to instill those lessons into them? Because oftentimes, if you ask children, and not that they have to know everything, but what do your parents do? Most of the time, they have no idea. And while it's not a bad thing as they get older, not that they have to become their parents, but they should know what you do and be able to speak upon it, and that have a hopefully positive impact on their view of the world and jobs and stuff like that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we do that at home. We try. My daughter does think I host a podcast for a living, and I would certainly love to generate enough revenue from this. This is the only thing that I do, but it is funny because she'll get asked like, "Oh, like what does your dad do?" "Oh, he hosts a podcast," and people are like, "What? How do you even know this?"
Joe Rogan?
Yeah, right. I wish, but yeah, no, it is such a great point, about family and how we integrate not just like what we talk about, but like what we show, and a reminder that our kids are always watching and always listening. And we tend to think about that as parents of like, don't say cuss words, and like your kids are paying attention to the nice things you do or the mean things you do, or even my wife and I, like, sometimes we'll just have an argument in front of our daughter and just be like, hey, we're modeling how to have a discussion about things that we have a disagreement on, and like those are the things that like we think about as parents. But yeah, in terms of like what we do for a living and how it formed us, and what we liked about it, what we didn't like about it, what choices we would make differently, right? Probably not going to talk about that with a 4 to an 8-year-old, but like books like this help build the foundation for, when she's older, we can have conversations about not just our why and I share, your belief system, right, in terms of purpose and the why that we do, but also why from a tactical perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you move at this time? Why did you take this job at this time? Why did you get out of the military at 4 years instead of, staying in like all these other people that she now knows, right? And really just having an open conversation with our kids about the decisions we make and the reference points that we have, and why we have those reference points. And like, it just, books like this really help open up. It's funny, we read a lot of like the Junie B. Jones books,
Yeah.
and that's a great example of how not to be, right? And like how some of the like, oh, don't talk like Junie, right? Now it's like, talk like Riley, but yeah, so I mean, in terms of like more books,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of more stuff for your life, like you're somebody who's done a lot of things and are doing a lot of things. I don't certainly expect you to like narrow down too much. But have you thought about like what's next in terms of books? Is this a series? Is it children's books? Do you want to write in another genre? Like where's your creativity taking you?
So I've had this conversation, and I'm so glad you asked, because recently it's shifted. I eventually want to write an adult book, but I don't feel like my story's done yet. And I mean that in a sense of I'm 28 and I still have a lot of milestones that are just like really, really close. And I just don't feel like I would fully have that full story that I want just yet for that. So after writing this first children's book, I want to write a second children's book. And I want to like hone in a little bit on Riley the Marine. And after my actually deployment experience, I think I would love to write about what it was like to deploy and serve with 26 other nations. Without giving too much away, because why not? You're the first person I really share this with that is not like that's recorded. Talk about my experience of serving with 26 other nations and how we were all different, spoke different, ate different, but we all were there united under the same purpose, and talk about how the military, but even globally, attracts people from all over that have a heart to serve and give back, and what that looks like to be away from families and to do things. So I kind of think that would be a really fun book, especially because there's not a whole lot out there for children when their parents deploy. The hard part is that's a really small now environment that I'm getting into. So I'm trying to be careful of like, hey, I want other people who aren't serving in the military to still be able to read this, but I do have a heart to reach out to military children, especially when they don't understand maybe what's going on. Why is mom or dad, gone for 6 months or a year, or what does that mean, or what does that look like? But shape it into a positive experience of, wow, what my parents are doing matters and it's really cool, and stuff like this. So it takes a lot longer. I have talked to my publisher about wanting to write another one, but I'm only 3-4 months from this launching. So I'm trying not to like jump up into the next thing and not enjoy this, because I've had so many times it's what people do. And I'm trying to kind of like put my foot on the brake and really say, hey, give this everything, have the proper time to get it out, talk to people. Don't be so in a hurry for what's next that you don't get to enjoy all the hard work that you truly put on this, because it's been almost 2 years now since the fruition and the start of this to where I am now, which has taken forever to get here, and the book hasn't even been out that long.
It's tricky, right? Like you want to keep momentum, but you do want to be present and you want to enjoy the aspects of your life, right? Not just the fruits of your labor with this book, but all the other aspects of your life. And then obviously, duty calls, right? Which is is an important theme, in your life and in the book. And it is tricky, like as creatives, like we tend to think about, we're always kind of like on to the next thing, right? Like I've got like 3 different screenplays that I'm writing and 3 different projects that I'm working on. And we want to keep the momentum, but we also want to enjoy. And I think that's like one of the most difficult things about being a creative, is trying to figure out how to I don't think about balancing those things. I think about like integrating them, right? Because
Mhm.
if we try to balance things, then it's just this really tight kind of thing that we're trying to. Whereas if we live a more integrated life and we're thinking about, you know, whether it's like workflows or life flows in terms of, oh, maybe I can just jot some ideas down, right, and get those creative juices flowing for like 15 minutes and then put it away in a folder. Now I can come back to it later. Like I scratched the itch, I got the momentum, I
Yep.
didn't lose anything. That's actually one thing that these devices are great for is you can just put some notes in there and then keep it moving and then come back to them when you need to.
Yeah, and I actually do that too, even with voice notes.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yep.
hey, here's what I'm thinking, here's what I'm seeing. And to your point, instead of balancing, because I hate that word, I just say my priorities. And like where
Mhm.
I am right now, like writing another book is like on the low end of those priorities, right? Like right now, I just moved to San Diego 2 months ago, started a new job with the Marine Corps. Like number one priority is like establish my job and who I am as a Marine in this new role and be able to support that. And then it's, hey, I need to hit training standards and all of these kinds of things. And oh, by the way, I'm getting married in a couple months. So now like that matters, right? And so it's just a couple things that have come before that. But to your point, already having a starting point, it's not saying no or pushing it to the side. It's just giving it that 15 minutes of, okay, I have an idea, let me do something. And when that becomes a priority, then I'm able to tackle it and get back and write and get that stuff going. But to your point, I wish I could just be a children's book author and could make enough money and live off of that. But unfortunately, there's not a whole lot in this, just like I know podcasting.
I like that framework, kind of like where it sits in your priorities, because we're always prioritizing something, and we always need to be prioritizing something, right? Like I think about it as a working dad, right? Where it's like, okay, now that I kind of do a quick audit as you gave me that framework, it's like, oh yeah, no, I'm choosing what and who to prioritize in any given moment or any given day. And my wife and I do this. I'll be like, hey, I need to, like, for instance, a podcast, and I was like, hey, Riley's on the West Coast. I'm going to need to do this, kind of like after bedtime or like right at bedtime. She's like, cool, I got you. I've got like Jack's coming back on and he's talking from the set of the Terminalist season 2. That's a 7 a.m. podcast interview because of his time change. So I'm
Yeah.
like, hey, it's on the calendar. Just so you know, I'm doing that at 7 a.m. that day. So like the night before and that day, some priorities are going to be adjusted, but we're planning for it. And then we can do it. I like that framework.
Yeah.
I like that's cool. That's very cool. And you have like a full life, right? Like you're going through like
Oh yeah, just that too, and that's what I tell people. Don't downplay being a mother, daughter, husband, wife, brother, sister, friend, a person, right?
Yep.
Like, yes, I'm Riley the author, Riley the Marine, Riley the athlete, but I'm also Riley. And sometimes I want to do something that's just for me that has nothing to do with trying to achieve or go after something. Sometimes I just want to kick back and just hang out and just
Yeah.
go to the grocery store.
Yeah.
So yeah, to your point, I that's what I tell people. Don't say you don't have enough time. You had enough time. If you really don't think you have enough time, check your screen time. And second of all, just ask yourself, what are your priorities and what are you prioritizing, and are you prioritizing properly the right things? And if
Yeah.
that's the case, then you can't be mad that you spent time doing X instead of Y.
Yeah, my brother says it well. It's not a matter of like not having time. It's a matter of using the time that you do have for the purposes that you're just being intentional about using them for, right? So like blending
Yeah.
priorities and the usage of time. It's like, yeah, that's a helpful framework that we can lay flat and say, okay, like how am I going to do this? I love San Diego, by the way. I grew up, we live in Columbus, Ohio now. So also a Midwest kid. And I moved to Columbus full time when I was 13. I moved from North County, San Diego. My dad's whole side of the family is from Columbus. So I've kind of visited here my whole life, and then I've basically lived here since I was 13, minus being in the military, deploying, and all of that, and then we're now back full time. But I love San Diego. I grew up in North County. Like, enjoy that duty station as much as you possibly can.
Oh, I am.
Yeah, it's the best. Cool. All right. Well, I want to kind of wrap things up here. Be respectful of your time on a Monday night. Where can folks find you? Where can folks find the book?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you want to drive some traffic here?
Absolutely. So I am on 2 social media sites, LinkedIn, because I decided that I need to adult, not that I'm looking for jobs, but I felt like that was a great way to connect with people. So you can find me on LinkedIn. You can also find me on Instagram. Both of those are Riley Tejcek. There's plenty of fake accounts, so make sure you find the right one. please make sure to follow or message me. I say that anyone who like this podcast or want to talk more or have someone support them or answer questions, I literally respond to every single one. I'm here to help you guys. As far as the book, it's available primarily on Amazon. I find that's the easiest, cheapest way because everyone has a Prime membership, but it's also available on my publisher's website, which is In-Game Press. That obviously costs a little bit more because you pay for shipping, but you're supporting small female-owned businesses as well. So hopefully in a bookstore soon and more to come. But if you do like the book, the biggest thing that I'm actually asking that I didn't realize was a big deal is reviews or ratings. I had zero idea, again, as a new author, how important that was until my publisher's like, hey, you need like 50 plus minimal. And I'm like, oh, surely it won't be that hard to get 50 to people to review it. And then I'm like, I don't review any purchases that I make on Amazon or anything like that. So why would I? Anyways, so that's an easy thing. If anyone does purchase the book, no matter how you purchase it, let me know. And last thing I will say, well, two things that come together. Oftentimes people are looking for signed copies or messages. That's hard to do because you can't purchase that directly. But if you go ahead and message me, I actually have copies that I'll sell to you and write it. Or if you already have it and you're like, oh, I still want something, I actually will just for free, just send me the name of your child, or I'll send a video. And let's say that's named Jackson. I'll send like a minute video to Jackson. You tell me a little bit about him and I'll just say, hi, I'm Riley, this, that, the other, and just shoot that off. Because again, it's about impact. It's about connecting with children. And sometimes kind of similar to your daughter, I hope it was fun to like see the actual person that they exist. And that's a way I think to be able to touch children's lives and try to do it in a creative way.
That's really cool. That's very cool that you do that. I went to go grab the book, but I'm sure she took it with her to look at it again before she went to sleep. But we were sitting there reading the book before we came in here, waiting for you to get on. And she's like, I want to see pictures of Riley. So I went to her Instagram and we were like looking at stuff. And she saw you holding one of the books. I think it was at the Quantico reading that you did, maybe. And she went, whoa. And I was like, what? And she goes, is that my book? And I was like, no. And then she picked up the book and she goes, did the real Riley touch this book? And I was like, that's not exactly how it works, but you are going to get to say hi to her here in a second. So yeah, that's really sweet. These kids, man, like this is, you're talking about like the impact, like it's a super real thing. Like I told her, I was like, I'm going to have an author on the podcast. I was like, actually it's Riley who wrote the book. She goes, you're going to have it's just like, these kids are just like, they're the best.
Yeah, it matters. And that's what I'm looking for too. So I kind of came up with that idea when someone from Canada was like, hey, I want a signed copy. And I'm like, I have no idea how I'm going to do that within a week for a birthday. I said, let me send a video. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's the easiest thing to do now to kids and stuff. So if anyone else also has any ideas, please let me know. I'm trying to be creative here and like find out ways that I can like connect with people and kids without physically being there. Obviously that's my preferred method. But yeah.
Cool. We'll crowdsource that. We'll put it out to the audience and people can message with ideas. Riley, to end each podcast, I ask an open-ended question. What's on your heart and your mind for our community right now? Could be a piece of advice, something you want to get off your chest, or something you want to reiterate that we've talked about today. But Riley, what's on your heart? What's on your mind?
What's on my heart and my mind, especially to my veteran community, is the words and the way that we speak to one another. I think within our veteran community, we can have the ability to encourage people and lift our brothers and sisters up in arms, or we have the ability to tear each other down and judge and have judgment on each other based off of, you served 4 years, you were in this MOS, you deployed, you didn't deploy, it wasn't as hard as this, or comparison. And I think that the more breakage and more we try to compare ourselves and separate ourselves, we actually end up hurting one another. I think our community, more than ever, of being 1% of people that serve, all struggle and suffer in some kind of capacity or have experienced some kind of hard that was asked of us. And I just ask that we're very wise with how we speak to each other, and we breathe life and encouragement into our brothers and sisters as they continue on life in service actively or out of it, instead of trying to tear each other down or apart, compare, or put other people down based off of opportunities that you may or may not have had. And that's something that I've seen more than ever in the veteran community. It breaks my heart, and I'm doing everything I can to counter that by showing people what it's like to be positive and encourage. And you don't have to hate on other people, maybe to make yourself feel better or to put them down when they're really proud to have served and done the things that they have.
That's a good word. Couldn't agree more. That is one of the top, a version of that is like one of the top answers every single time. And it breaks my heart because it is a real problem that we have to stop. We have to stop doing it, and we have to actually start, like, I like the way that you're framing it. We actually have to start saying good things to each other, doing good things for each other, doing things with each other, actually helping each other. Yes, stop talking shit, excuse my language, but also start building up, right? Like we've got a problem in this country if people do not want to join the military because they see that people that get out of the military just hate each other. Be something that they want to be a part of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Riley, appreciate you. Appreciate your time. Appreciate your words in the book. And let's do it again sometime.
Thanks, Gary.
Thanks.